Hold please. The cotton state. The jazzy state. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime. Crue Trime. Crue Trime. If you are new here, hello! My name is Sara, and what I do around here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day, and I put on my makeup while I do it. If you like that kind of thing, then make sure that you subscribe to this channel and turn on the bell notifications and alerts and all of that jazz, and that way you won't miss anything. Today's terrible story was recommended by a lovely viewer named Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer! This request came in on Instagram. Go on over to Instagram and tell Jennifer I said hello. Thank you so much for that recommendation, and let's get to it. Today we are going to Sweet Home, Alabama.
Mom, I'm coming home to you. Break it down.
For the story of Lisa Graham. Okay, I've already taken a shortcut with my eyebrows today. I'm sure you noticed because you can see them. I don't really talk about the makeup as I'm applying it, but if you're interested to see or know anything that I used in today's video, just look in the description box because everything's linked just for you. Hang on, I gotta put my bangs back. You know, I pulled my hair back out of my face with this headband, but these bangs, they got a mind of their own. On Thursday, July 5th, 2007, Ehrlich Dinkins, great name, love this name, was driving on Highway 165 near Bowden Road in the Alabama boonies. The nearest town was called Cottonton, which is about 30 miles south of Columbus, Georgia. Mr. Dinkins discovered the partially nude body of a 21-year-old woman named Shea Graham lying on the side of the road. She had been shot multiple times. Now, at the time that her body was discovered, they couldn't identify her because she had no ID or purse, phone, and nothing like that. It was just her. Mr. Dinkins, of course, called the police. Dr. Stephen Boudreau, a pathologist with the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences, later, far down the road, testified that Shea had died of multiple gunshot wounds. There was a close-range gunshot that entered the right eye that obliterated that entire area, exited out of the backside of her head. There was a second gunshot that entered at the back right side of her head and exited to the left. She also had gunshot wounds to her chest and abdomen. When Mr. Dinkins had discovered her on the side of the road, her pants had been pulled down, but she was otherwise clothed. So who was this person? Glad you asked. Stephanie Shea Graham was born on February 8th, 1987 in Columbus, Georgia, to Lisa and Kevin Graham. As Shea grew into a teenager, the relationship with her mother grew and more strained. Shea was pretty troubled, actually, and she had fallen into drugs and alcohol and had dropped out of college. She allegedly had gotten involved in sex work to feed her addiction, although there is conflicting information about how bad her drug use was or if she was still into it at the time that this happened. But at any rate, Shea was definitely in and out of trouble, and the latest legal problem she had was pretty serious. So Shea had been involved in a drive-by shooting in Columbus in September 2006, just a few months prior to this. Oh, I guess it's about a year before this. Nobody was killed in that incident, but Shea was the driver and had been caught, of course. She was actually out on bond. Her parents, her dad, had paid $100,000 cash to get her out. Not only that, but the morning that Shea's body was discovered, she was actually due to be in court to deal with that very issue. So, I mean, that definitely looks like it's related, right? Big yikes. Okay, so as I said, when Shea's body was discovered, there wasn't any ID on her, so she was kind of a Jane Doe for a time. Now, cut over to her parents' house. She did live at home with her parents. When they woke up that morning and Shea wasn't there and her car wasn't there, they realized she just had never come home the night before. So they were trying to reach her, calling everyone that they knew, that they had contact information for, to try to track her down. And her mother, Lisa, called the sheriff's department and filed a missing persons report. Okay, so remember, it's not a big town. So when Shea's parents called the police to report their daughter missing, they also, remember, had an unidentified body on hand. The descriptions started to match and they put them together pretty quickly. Well, they weren't gonna tell them anything like that over the phone, of course, so they had asked the Grahams to come down to the police station. So they were able to match some fingerprints to confirm it was Shea, and the Grahams were devastated. Okay, now let's learn about the Grahams. So, Lisa and Kevin Graham lived in Phoenix City, Alabama their whole lives. They grew up together, they had started dating as teenagers, and then after they both graduated high school, Kevin was just a little bit older, but not much. Things got serious, and they got married in 1986. Within a year, they became parents. Shea was, of course, born in 1987, and a few years later, they had a boy, Kevin Jr. So Kevin had a construction business, he was a general contractor, and Lisa did the books. And over the years, their business grew and they were very successful. Now, Shea, as she grew up, she was a firecracker. Shea grew up racing dirt track cars as a kid, and then, you know, when she grew into her teen years, she started to really get wild. She was barely a teenager before she started having trouble with drugs and became a regular in the courtroom, you know. As I mentioned earlier, it was just kind of a mess. At one point, it did seem like she was trying to sort herself out. You know, she enrolled in college, she was doing good, staying out of trouble, but it was short-lived. After she dropped out of school, she started working at a strip club. Lisa hated it, of course. Lisa hated the crowd that she was running with. She said they were just bad. Okay, so now the police have kind of linked Shea's murder with her legal troubles. They started questioning any and all known friends, associates, anyone. So several witnesses told investigators that they saw Shea leave with a man, and they knew this man, 36-year-old Kenneth Walton. Several of the witnesses knew that Kenny was a longtime family friend of Kevin and Lisa Graham, Shea's parents, and he'd even worked for them. In fact, he'd been working for them for years. But recently, Kevin had to fire him because he had damaged some equipment, and that had happened 2 days before Shea's murder. Interesting. That sounds like a motive, friends. So when police questioned Kenny Walton the next day, he denied being involved, although he did admit meeting up with Shea that night. Police told him, "We have surveillance footage of Shea getting in your car, so..." Well, it didn't take long for all of the dirty details to come tumbling out. Kenneth Walton confessed pretty much immediately. So Kenny said that he had known the Grahams his whole life, and he had started working for them about 3 years before, after he got released from prison for doing some time for cocaine stuff. Anyways, he admitted that he knew Shea, that Shea was like a daughter to him. You know, he was very close with her, and he said that Shea had asked him for help to run away, essentially to like skip out on her court appearance. So Kenny met Shea up at this gas station on Victory Drive in Columbus, Georgia, and she got into his truck and they drove off. Shea got into his truck, they drove away, and they were just kind of driving around in circles in the country, and Shea told him, "I gotta pee," like now. Kenny just pulled over so Shea could get out and just do her business real quick.
Alabama!
It's no big deal. Everybody's peed on the side of the road before. Don't judge. Well, you know, Shea opened the door and just kind of like squatted on the side of the road next to the truck. And as she was doing that, Kenny pulled out a gun and shot her in the head through the open truck door. And then he got out of the truck, ran around, and shot her a couple more times. Kenny, golly. Well, then he scrambled back into the truck and like drove off in a hurry, and in the process ran over Shea's arm. Poor Shea was left on the side of the road with her pants around her ankles. But why? He'd known Shea since she was born, essentially, and he said he was there to help her out, so why would he have shot her like that? Hold on to your butts. Lisa Graham, Shea's mother, didn't just hate Shea's terrible bad influence friends. She hated Shea. Well, as Shea grew up and was hell on wheels, Kevin, in her opinion, wasn't helpful. Shea had him wrapped around her little finger. She was daddy's girl. Kevin always sided with Shea, and no matter how much Lisa tried to straighten her out, Shea got away with everything, and Kevin was no help at all. Kenny told the police that Lisa had approached him and began talking about wanting her daughter dead. He said that he told her, "Well, if that's something you want done, you're gonna have to do it yourself." But then Lisa told him that he owed her. Owed her for what? Well, apparently Lisa's husband, Kevin, had been having an affair with one of Kenny's cousins. Well, Lisa had found out about it and found out that Kenny knew and was covering it up. I don't know how knowing that your friend's husband is cheating on their wife somehow creates a debt, let alone one that requires contract killing to settle. But listen up, friends. Stay out of people's relationship issues unless it's, a safety issue.
That's all I have to say about that.
Kenny, I guess, feels bad now that he knows that Lisa knows and wants to make it up to her. Also, Lisa's daughter, Shea, was, on the Hot Mess Express. Lisa and Kevin had just paid $100,000 cash bond for her. And Lisa told Kevin that she was afraid that Shea was going to skip town and leave them holding the bag. Like, that's what happens. If you don't show up to your court appearance after you bail yourself out, you owe a lot more money. It's a problem. So, fair enough, I guess, But it's also a pretty convenient excuse considering that Lisa had been complaining about Shea for a while. So, on the afternoon of Thursday, July 5th, 2007, Kenny met up with Lisa Graham at the local library, and Lisa handed him the keys to her truck so that he could get in and grab the 9mm handgun. She told him to be sure that the body was left out in the open so that she'd be found quickly, because she wanted to make sure that the court knew that Shea hadn't run off. All right, so on the morning of July 6th, the morning that Shea's body was discovered, Kenny had a voicemail message from Lisa asking if he'd seen Shea. They later arranged to meet up. Kevin came over to the Graham house and he returned the handgun to Lisa. And as they were chatting, Warren Thompson, Lisa's grandfather, who they called Pawpaw, he wandered over, as you do. Kenny reminded Lisa that that gun was going to need to be cleaned, and Pawpaw cheerfully offered to do it. Isn't that nice? So that was the story, right, from Kenny to the police. So with all of that information, the police went to the Grahams. They started asking about guns. Do you own guns? Where are the guns? What's going on? Specifically, they were asking about a 9mm handgun. They knew the caliber of the weapon that had killed Shea. Lisa said she had no idea where this 9mm gun was. Lost, I guess. Well then, good old Kevin piped up. Pawpaw has it. Remember? Well, as you can guess, that firearm was easily retrieved from Pawpaw. He hadn't been able to clean it just yet, so a lot of evidence on that weapon. Also, ballistics testing and all that stuff showed that it, in fact, did match the weapon that killed Shea. Lisa was arrested, and Kevin didn't seem to know at all what was going on. He had no idea what was happening. At this point, they've just heard this super wild story from Kenny Walton, who, to be fair, a man with a criminal record. That story was lining up. So now they've arrested Lisa, and Lisa started telling the police all about Shea's trouble with the law.
Doing cocaine, she was stripping.
She claimed that she had just asked Kenny Walton, their longtime family friend, to just talk some sense into her. Also, Kenny was having marital trouble himself, so Lisa had met him at the library to just be a friend and offer some marriage advice. She said that Kenny told her that he knew what to do, and Kenny must have misunderstood her frustration as something else. If she was venting about Shea's situation, that was all she was doing. She was just venting. She denied everything. Bullshit. Well, the police were like, nah, dude, you're full of shit. So let's back it up just a little bit. When the Grahams were brought down to the police station after this firearm discovery, Kevin started to, I guess, realize whoa, wait, what? The police had filled him in on the details. At one point, he asked police if he could speak with Lisa alone because he was sure that he could get the truth out of her. They did speak privately. I mean, as privately as you can in a police interrogation room, but we'll come back to that. Okay, so now there's a full-blown investigation happening. Many of the Grahams' neighbors were interviewed and they later testified once the case went to trial. I cannot talk and put on mascara at the same time. I'm struggling. It seems that Lisa wasn't shy about how she really felt about Shea. Stephen Heimelberger, who lived across the street, told police that Lisa told him that she was tired of the little bitch. She also straight up offered him $5,000 to kill her. He told Lisa that she was nuts and he thought she was kidding, of course. That is until Lisa kept on saying that she wanted the little bitch dead and was tired of spending money for rehab, bond, and attorney's fees on her. Another neighbor, Rachel Cunningham, who lived about 2 blocks away, said that Lisa frequently spoke about Shea being killed, and a few weeks before Shea was murdered, she heard Lisa and Kevin talking, like she overheard them talking about how easy it would be to get it done and what would be the best cleanup and all of that. Blah, blah, blah. So it actually took a while for this case to make it to court, to trial. The court was undergoing like extensive renovations to the building, which delayed the case itself by like 2 years. They couldn't have it somewhere else? I don't know. There was also a non-stop barrage of pretrial motions and objections from the defense, Lisa's defense, jury selection, scheduling witnesses to come in from out of state. It just like, it really delayed it. Now, speaking of objections from the defense, remember that conversation in the jailhouse between Lisa and Kevin? Lisa's defense motioned to suppress that conversation because of marital privilege. Okay, so marital privilege, if you didn't know, if you have a conversation with your spouse about criminal activity, you cannot be forced to testify against them if you don't want to. But here's the thing. If the conversation is knowingly published, like captured by cameras and microphone equipment in a police interrogation room, and you're whispering because you know it's being recorded, that means that there's no expectation of privacy or confidentiality. There is no privilege. So in that little conversation between Kevin and Lisa, you know, they were speaking in hushed tones, and Lisa said, "They're recording everything." And they even talked about like where the cameras were in the room. Dude. Well, what did they say in that conversation? Lisa told Kevin that she met Kenny at the library and gave him a gun, but she said that she thought that Kenny was going to use the gun to kill Kevin's girlfriend, you know, Kenny's cousin. Well, the rest of the conversation had them wondering why Lisa had been asked to the police station, and Kevin indicated at one point that Kenny must have killed Shea to get back at them for firing him. Additionally, Lisa claimed that the conversation with Kevin at the police station was the functional equivalent of a police interrogation, and as such, she should have received Miranda rights before being allowed to speak with him. I mean, you gotta love this like legal gymnastics, right? Like, is it a privileged conversation or is it an interrogation? Anyways, it was objections like that, like a nonstop barrage of just like picking, right? So the trial took like 5 years or something like that to go to trial. The case finally made it into the courtroom in 2012. Well, the prosecution's case described how Lisa wanted her daughter killed because she felt that she was destroying her marriage and ruining her life. I mean, shitty, but maybe kind of true. Kenny Walton straight up pled guilty and was sentenced to life. And then he became the state's star witness. On September 25th, 2012, a mistrial was declared in the case. Well, the judge, George Green, had become very, very sick, like seriously sick. And he was granted a leave of absence for medical reasons. But there was apparently no other judge in the circuit that could preside over the trial. Damn. Okay, so round 2, new trial, new judge, all that. So Judge Jacob Walker III came in to preside over the new trial. The state's case described how Lisa Graham solicited Kenny Walton to kill her daughter. Walton agreed to testify. The defense zeroed in on Kenny. You know, he was a cold-blooded killer, and he confessed. He killed his friend's daughter without even being paid. So it's totally true that Lisa ran her mouth a lot about Shea, venting, as one would say. But money never exchanged hands. Just wait. So once Lisa learned that Kenny was going to testify, she had some other inmates send a kite, that's a prison note, friends. So she sent a kite to Kenny that said, would he take $10,000 to take me out of the equation? Lisa, if there wasn't a contract before, there is now. So the trial continued, and after closing arguments and all that jazz, the jury deliberated for about an hour and found Lisa Graham guilty of capital murder, and they recommended by a vote of 10-2 that she be sentenced to death. The sentencing hearing was held about 8 months later. Lisa's son, Kevin Jr., gave a statement to the court, essentially begging for mercy.
He doesn't want to lose you.
No, he don't.
He's already lost his sister. I don't want him to lose me too.
I mean, Lisa, your daughter is gone because you had her murdered. Judge Walker decided to uphold the jury's recommendation, and Lisa became the 5th woman on Alabama's death row. Well, she appealed immediately, of course, arguing that her right to a speedy trial was violated because it took over 8 years between her being arrested and the conviction. The first trial ended up in a mistrial because the judge, like, died, essentially. Also, capital murder cases take a long time to get in the courtroom, typically. In the court documents from the appeal, it says that the majority of the delay in the case was based on motions and extraordinary petitions filed by Lisa. The case went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, but it has fizzled completely, like everything is exhausted, leaving the original conviction and sentence in place. Lisa Graham is currently on death row at the Tutwiler Correctional Facility in Wetumpka, Alabama. And that, friends, is the terrible story of Lisa Graham. Thanks again to Jennifer for recommending this terrible story. If you have a Crue Trime recommendation that you would like to suggest, you can leave it in the comments. You can send me an email, smoke signal, carrier pigeon, telegram, interpretive dance, whatever. And again, for all the information about the makeup I used or anything else that you see that I didn't talk about, just check the description box. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to this channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here every week, and you can follow me on all of the social channels. Why did I say it like that? I don't know. That's it for now. I will catch you next time in the next video. Bye! Okay. Alabama state slogan. Hold please. The cotton state. The jazzy state. And in your, okay, dramatic ambulance.